Okay, so I'm working on mixing my paint for acrylic pouring. I have a ton of colors. I'm gonna do one here, black, shades of gray, rose gold, and coral, a little bit of white. So I like to use a mix of all different kinds of products. So I have house paint. I got this for 50 cents. It's already tinted. It's super dark. It's like a really dark gray. I have this guy, which is a color sample from Home Depot. Again, it's also already tinted. Another 50 cents, which is amazing. Let's see. This guy I got from Goodwill for $1. So it doesn't really matter as long as it's acrylic paint. Latex house paint is also an acrylic paint. You can mix in your paints. You can mix in glitters if you want. I like to use glitter paint that already has glitter in it if I'm gonna try to mess with that. But I love metallics. I got these from Home Depot. Also, Extreme Sheen. This one's pretty cool. It's like a pearl white metallic. So, all right. So the process of mixing paint here. I'll just do one real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, let me move some of this out of the way. These are all in various stages of being done. Not quite ready yet, but let's go start to finish. So, probably set my camera up on the wrong side because I am a lefty. And I mix with my left hand. Oh well. Okay, so I'm gonna mix up some. Let's see, what do we got? Copper. I'm gonna do some of this light green. It's called Soft Apple. It's just some cheap acrylic paint. The nice thing about this is you don't really need to buy super expensive paint. I mean, you absolutely can, but it's not a necessity. Okay, I'm not gonna make a ton of this. I'm gonna use some later in a different pour, but here's my paint in my cup. Okay, next thing I use, you have to use a binding agent or a pouring medium with your paint because we thin these out so much that they can really flow. Like this one's ready, this is black, and it's so thin that it really pours well. But to get it to that consistency, you really have to thin it out with a lot of water. If you don't use a binding agent or a pouring medium, you lose a lot of that, or the stability of the paint goes down. So there's a bunch of things you can use. First is there's a pouring medium, an artist's pouring medium. It's called Liquid Tex. I don't use that. I don't spend the money. I use this. It's called Floetrol, Flood Floetrol. It's basically a latex paint extender or paint additive that makes it so you don't get brush strokes. This stuff works amazing. And it's like, I got this gallon for about 13 bucks. You can get little smaller sizes too. When you're first starting out, you can also use like Elmer's glue wall, just a regular PVA glue. I also I've used this stuff before too. It's made for kids who like to make slime. I got it for like $1, but it works really good. So, there's varying, oh, my dryer is really loud, sorry. There's varying ideas of how much pouring medium you want to use. I like to use about half and half. Kind of depends on the paint I'm using. This stuff is really thick, so I'm going to go about half and half. I know I'm really going to have to dilute it. So, just pour it in. I like to use these little cups that come with lids because you can save your paint. So if you don't use it all for a project, put the lid on. It'll last weeks in there, and that's really helpful. Oops, sorry about that. My paint lid was making crazy sounds. So anyway, you just mix it really good. You want to be careful though. If you're impatient like me and you're mixing paint, don't go crazy with it because You don't have to go really fast. What you don't want to do is get a ton of little air bubbles trapped in there, and the crazier of a mixer you are, the more air bubbles you get, even after you dilute it with water. So the more air bubbles you have, the longer you kind of need to let it sit. Otherwise, when your painting dries, you get all these little pinholes in it. As the paint dries, the little air bubbles rise to the surface. You have these little tiny holes. It's really ugly all over the painting. Okay, so that's mixed up pretty good. Just a little bit of water. I start a little bit at a time, because if you use too much water, then you have to add more paint, and it's just kind of annoying. Mix, mix, mix. You want to make sure you scrape the edges as you go, too. Get any paint that's hiding out in there. Scrape the center. So the majority of these paintings that I do, like this one I hate. It looks like someone smeared mustard on it. But I got a lot of really good feedback on Instagram from it, I guess. But anyway, to make a painting like this, it only takes a couple minutes to actually pour the paint all over it, but it could take hours to mix all your paint, depending on how many colors you're using. Oh, so your arm gets tired. Anyway, okay, let's check this. So it's not even close to thick enough. You want it to just run right off of there, not fall off in gloops. So let's add some more water. Mix away. Mix, mix, mix. Usually, if anyone were to see me at home and I'm actually doing pours, I have my music on, I'm like dancing around the house. It's ridiculous. Because it's fun. So let's see how this is. That's a lot better. Still needs a little bit of water. So the thicker your paint is, the more it'll tend to sit in the middle of your canvas. And when you pour paint on a canvas, it's hard in the beginning to figure out how much paint you need to pour into a big cup altogether before you dump it on your canvas, because you just don't know. I mean, it's really a lot of trial and error. So usually what you'll do, you'll layer all your colors in a cup, dump it on your canvas, and tilt it around. So if you use too thick a paint, it doesn't tilt well, and it'll just sit there heavy on the canvas. And if that happens, when it dries, it gets all these cracks in it, which is really not good, especially if you're looking to sell stuff. Okay, this one is good. So the last step, once the paint is mixed, you have your paint, your glue wall, or white glue, or PVA glue, or Floetrol, and your water. Once it's the consistency you want, try to let it sit for like 20-25 minutes before you throw your painting together. It's kind of hard to do that, so I understand. But the final step is silicone spray or drops. You can get treadmill silicone or where's my silicone? This I got from the dollar store. If you're on a budget, works just as good. This I got from Home Depot for like $3. It's going to last me forever. You can use, there's a lot of hair products out there now that have silicone in them. Garnier, whatever, makes a lot of different silicone products. I've seen people use olive oil, although the results aren't as great. But when you're putting in your silicone, you just spray it in here. Use a fair amount, and then mix it all up. And then let it sit for a minute before you start your pour. The silicone is what makes these little cells and what makes the color stick together so that you don't just get a big brown blob, and B, as you pour layers upon layers upon layers of color, you get, it's like a big mishmash of color in a cup, or you can pour them directly onto the canvas. I also use pieces of PVC pipe. You lay them right on the canvas, pour your paint in there, lift it up and go. I have different sizes of that. So once you layer all of your paint in, the silicone will, after you pour it on your canvas, it'll all rise to the top of the paint. These take like 3 days to dry. So silicone keeps rising up. As the silicone rises, you get those beautiful cells of color that are really pretty amazing. So, okay, this video has been going on way too long. I'll do another video soon of me actually doing a pour. And yeah, that's about it, how you mix the paint. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you have any questions.